When I was 12 years old, I discovered that I had a superpower. In the blink of an eye, I could transform myself into someone else, a person who was smart, mature, likable, easy to work with. I discovered the ability to speak white. This is a talk about speech, the way that we make assumptions about others based off of their type of speech, assumptions about somebody's intelligence, background, or behavior that are dependent on certain factors, such as a person's presence or absence of an accent, dialect, or simply the way that they speak. Today, I'm going to make 3 main points. First, I'm going to explain linguistic bias in the education system. Then I'm going to explain how that gets transformed outside of the classroom. And lastly, I'm going to say why this all matters. In my family, we speak a dialect called AAVE, or African American Vernacular English. AAVE goes by other names such as Ebonics, Black Linguistics. More contemporarily, it's used in Gen Z slang such as slay queen, period, clock it. That's all AAVE, and I know some of my Gen Zers in the audience are resonating with me. For those of you who attended grade school in the United States, I want you to think back to your childhood education experience. Most of us were taught American prescriptivist grammar rules, such as linking verbs and conjunctions. On a written exam, you might have been corrected for saying the sky blue instead of the sky is blue. For me, learning these rules at first were difficult because they were in direct contrast to the way that I used language in my household. You see, in my family, it was, don't be running this house, or, oh, she going to the store real quick, she'll be back, or, why that baby ain't got no shoes on his feet? It's about cold as hell outside. I remember one day I was in class, maybe in the 4th or 5th grade, and my teacher gave me this writing assignment. We could write about anything that we wanted to, and so I knew what I was gonna do. I was gonna write about this pig named Crispy Bacon, and I was gonna talk about all his adventures. It was great, but instead of my story, I used AAVE. Y'all, I got back that assignment. I saw a sea of red ink. Wrong, wrong, fix this, wrong. At the time, I felt very small and confused because I was writing in English and my story was easy to understand, so why was my teacher telling me that I failed? But here's the thing, I wasn't wrong. I was speaking the language that I knew. I just didn't realize at the time that some ways of speaking are seen as more correct than others. And the way that you speak can determine if somebody sees you as smart or not. That was my first experience with language bias. And then as a child, I began to internalize this because here are the stats, right? I'm Black, I'm a woman, 2 identities that society already sees as less intelligent, less credible. So I made a decision. I wouldn't allow my language to be another reason for me to be dismissed. So I held my AAVE close and saved it for spaces where I felt safe, at home, with my family, or with other Black kids. Because my crispy bacon experience taught me that that wasn't allowed in the classroom. But this isn't only unique to myself, no, because I witnessed the Latino students in my class who were embarrassed to read out loud because of their accent, or were told not to speak Spanish at all. And then years later, when I went to university, I met people with a wide range of inflections from their home states in the South, and the Midwest, and here up north. And then I met people from parts of Europe, Asia, and Africa. And that's when I realized that language is central to everyone's identity. So we've talked about linguistic bias in the education system, right? But let's see how it evolves outside of the classroom. In 2013, a 19-year-old high school student named Rachel Jontel gave her first ever courtroom testimony involving the murder trial of her friend Trayvon Martin. She sat casually at the witness stand, a black dress shirt, silver hoop earrings. She had this nice updo, blunt bangs, just your ordinary 2010s teen. As ordinary as anybody could be after being on the receiving end of a phone call where you hear your friend being shot to death. Rachel gave a testimony for 6 hours. 6 hours, can you imagine that? And during that time, she used AAVE. And within those 6 hours, she was repeatedly interrupted by the court reporter, telling her to slow down, repeat yourself, speak more clearly, more loudly, more properly. Ultimately, Rachel's testimony was dismissed as difficult to understand by the jury, leading to the acquittal of George Zimmerman, the man who murdered Trayvon Martin. Rachel's case is not isolated. It's a part of a pattern where people in society are discredited, underestimated, and silenced because of their speech patterns. In 2010, the University of Chicago, they did this study. They wanted to see if people with foreign accents were seen as less credible or untrustworthy. And so what they did is they had American participants judge the statements, one with a person who had a foreign accent, and then another statement made by somebody who had an American accent or a non-accent. The results showed this. American accents got a trustworthiness of 7.5. People with mild accents were given a 6.95, and people with heavy accents were given a 6.84. That means on the truthfulness scale, people with foreign accents were seen as 10% less trustworthy than people without an American accent or with an American accent. Let's sit with that. So why does this matter? Why does it matter that I got a bad grade on my crispy bacon story, that Rachel Jontel's testimony got dismissed, or that Americans see people with foreign accents as less trustworthy? Well, I want you to think about a time where you've heard somebody and you've judged them automatically. Did you make a decision about their intelligence or their honor? Did you question their social class or their background? No one should ever have to change themselves, code switch, or water down their identity just for a chance to have a seat at the table. Because language bias, it doesn't just hurt feelings, it shapes outcomes. It determines who gets hired, who gets respected, who gets justice. There's a quote from one of my favorite TV shows, Modern Family, shout out Modern Family, and it's said by one of the main characters, Gloria, played by Sofia Vergara, and it is, "Do you even know how smart I am in Spanish?" Today, there are a lot more things dividing us than there are uniting us. When I was younger, I thought my superpower was becoming somebody else, someone who was easier to understand, easier to accept. But then I realized something, that the real power isn't in changing how you speak, it's in creating a world where people grow the capacity to listen. Thank you.